This program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the Eau Claire Area School Board. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
Good evening, everyone. Prior to saying the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, I'm going to welcome you all here and thank you for coming. But I'd like to take the time to experience a moment of silence in memory of those lost, in support of those injured, and in honor of those taking a stand as students and educators, staff and administrators at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Marjory Stoneman High School is named after a woman who was an American journalist. She was an author. She was a women's suffrage advocate and a conservationist known for her staunch defense of the Everglades against efforts to drain it and reclaim land for development. She started her Everglade advocacy when she was 79 years old. She lived to be 108 years old, dying in 1998. I can't help thinking that the students and staff of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School are walking in her footsteps, their namesake, as activists and voices for those who lost their lives on Valentine's Day. For those here tonight or listening online that feel strongly about the violence that is happening in schools across our country now, is the time for you to find your voice as well. Our 17 moments of silence tonight, one moment for each child and educator lost at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, will hopefully send a message from your school board that keeping our schools and grounds safe is our #1 priority, and it should be for the #1 priority across our country. So when you say the word all tonight at the end of the Pledge of Allegiance, know that it's for all children across our country. So please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Patty, are we in compliance of our open meetings law in our dear state of Wisconsin?
Yes, we are.
Roll call for a quorum, please.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle.
Here.
Commissioner Harder.
Here.
Commissioner Luganbill.
Here.
Commissioner Vu.
Here.
Commissioner Torres.
Here.
Commissioner Bika. Here. Commissioner Duex is absent.
Thank you. We will start with our public forum. We have one person signed up this evening. Please state your name and address, and it is Mark Goings. Thanks, Mark.
Good evening. My name is Mark Goings. I live at E17450 County Road V in Augusta. And my comments tonight, I wanted to mention, they pertain to the discussion you'll have in a little while as far as the school board handbook. And I just wanted to raise a couple questions, not necessarily things to add, in the handbook, but things for you to consider. On page 11 of that handbook, under the standing committees, one of the thoughts I've had now that I've been on many of the standing committees for multiple years, I think there could be a great benefit if there's a school board member that was on both the Budget Development Committee and also the Demo and Trends Committee, because as tight as budgets are getting, I think it could be good to have one person with the skill set of both those committees in on discussions, because the way we use our buildings and talk about them in Demo and Trends, how we use them, do we add on or not. It might be helpful to have someone from the Budget Development Committee in on some of those early discussions, because the way those discussions proceed can definitely have budgetary impacts. So that's one area. And the other area I suggest the board at least discuss is on page 27, the part about quorum. The business of the school board at this meeting is extremely important. But we also have people, for whether it be professional or personal reasons, have to miss some of the meetings. With technology the way it is now, one thing I would like to see is the school board to look at, is there a way we could have a person join the meeting through Skype, through phone, through some electronic means, so that they could be a full participant in the discussion, so that way the business of the board can proceed. And so, again, in the handbook, you could even state that it's preferred if you're here in person, but with technology the way it is today, to me, it's more important that we have a full board as often as we can. And if that needs to be through electronic means, then that would still help the board be able to do its work. So those are two things I hope you'd at least discuss when you look at your handbook. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Concludes our public forum and takes us to our superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to review the upcoming school board events. On March 5th, there will be a meeting of the Policy and Governance Committee. That will be at 8:45, and that will be followed by a school board meeting on March 5th, and both of those meetings will take place in the administration building. On March 6th, there will be a school board candidate forum sponsored by the Parent Advisory Council and North and Memorial Student Councils. That will take place at North High School. It will take place from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. On March 8th at 11 a.m., the Budget Development Committee will meet, and that will take place at the administration building. Also on March 8th, there is a school board candidate forum, and that is being held by the chamber, and that takes place from 7 to 8:30 p.m. It was being held at the CVTC Claremont campus, the Business Education Center. On March 13th, there is a meeting of the LEAP committee and that's at 4 p.m. On March 15th, there's a meeting of the Demographic Trends Committee. That's at 4:30 p.m., and both of those meetings will be held at the administration building. Then from March 19th to the 23rd, ECASD will observe spring break. And on March 26th at 8:45 a.m., there will be a meeting of the Policy and Governance Committee, which will be followed that evening by a regular meeting of the school board. And all of those meetings will take place at the administration building. Earlier in the year, we recognized 7 students in the district that had been named National Merit Finalists. There were over 1.6 million entrants in this competition. In October, we recognized these same students, and, as finalists, they are now eligible to receive National Merit Scholarships or awards. And students named for this distinction include Chase Hansen, Tim Hirsch, Will Orzer, Colin Porter, Sarah Scheifelbein, John Strimcha, and Sean Miller. And we congratulate them on this individual achievement. These are competitive distinctions, and we're very, very proud of them. So as President Humbug Boyle so eloquently stated, all of us in ECASD are deeply saddened by the tragic shootings in Parkland, Florida. We mourn the loss of the 17 lives, 3 adults and 14 children, who were senselessly murdered at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. And some of us may be feeling pain, depression, and anger about how these people died. We may also be feeling fearful about our own well-being. As a school district, like other school districts across the country, we do all we can to be vigilant and proactive when it comes to the safety of our students and staff. With our partners, the Eau Claire Police Department, we prepare, we practice, and we follow safety and security measures each and every day. We do many of the same things that are done across all school districts. We have armed school resource officers in each of our middle and high schools, and they are assigned to respond to elementary schools. All of our schools have strict visitor controls, including electronic door access technology. And part of our referendum was to update some of the safety features in our schools. All of our employees train and have access to the school's emergency response plan. The staff and the police conduct ongoing threat assessments. We conduct safety drills for staff and students, for fire, for weather, for threats, and for intruders. Schools work very hard to provide school-wide behavior expectations, positive interventions and supports, as well as programs that are designed to address bullying and conflict mediation, and we provide counseling. I think it's important to remember that help is available for students through our schools. If anyone is concerned about their child or a fellow student feeling that he or she needs additional support, all you need to do is to speak with one of our principals or counselors. And I think it's also important to remember during this time that for our staff, it's only normal to be upset in the days and weeks following such a tragedy. And I think we all want our staff to know that if they are having difficulty managing their feelings of distress, or if they're having difficulty meeting their usual obligations, it may be some time for some professional help. And the district provides access to the professional health care. We have assistance available through our Employee Achievement Program and through our clinic. And we want people to know that it's okay to reach out. I think, speaking as a superintendent, I would say that we need everyone's help. If you see or hear something suspicious, something unusual or out of the ordinary, please report it to a school staff member or to the police. In that way, we can follow up on information to address suspicious behavior and to help stem the rumor mill. It's better to look into many, many false reports than to miss one true one. Making this kind of a report is personally painful to me, and I think it's painful to everyone who works in the school district. And my prayer and my greatest hope going forward is that we would never have to address this kind of subject again. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Hardebeck. That takes us on to the President's report. I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible. I've always wanted to start a school board team to walk or run Longfellow's Jeannie Ritchie Memorial Puddle Jump. It's Saturday, April 21st. Marianne and I have walked it together with our husbands. I'd like to explore joining either a board office, do we have one this year, team, so we can do that. And Patty's going yes, or form a school board team, but I think it would be great to join the one here. I think that it would be fun going forward that all board members would be invited back every year to participate. I volunteer to help spearhead that up. Advanced registration is open until Thursday, March 15th, so as board members, if you'd like to be part of the team, I need to know pretty soon. Otherwise, you can register the day of and walk as an individual. So the proceeds from the race, this race has been going on for a long time. Jeannie Ritchie was a close friend of mine. She was a kindergarten teacher at Longfellow and is missed to this day. And in her honor, they do the puddle jump walk or run every year. Proceeds benefit Longfellow's After School 21st Century Community Learning Center and student scholarships for community programs. There's also, they have added the Duckling Dash, which is an untimed children's race too, that begins at 9 o'clock. So get in touch with me if you feel like doing that. It's recently, too, brought to my attention that we've lost several of our retired and one district employee recently. Each time this happens, we're reminded of the incredible people that become part of our district story and the support we ultimately are for each other. So I recently attended a visitation for Vi Bradley, a longtime special education teacher in our district. The first year I taught in 1979, I taught with Vi Bradley. She had lost her arm as a child, or I think it was even born that way, and I taught with her for almost a year before I realized she didn't have her arm because she was so good at using the one that she had there. So she's an amazing person. She just recently passed away. She has a daughter, Terry, who is a retired speech path from the district, Amy, who is the school secretary at Montessori, and their recent recipient of the Golden Apple Awards. You can see Vi is still in the district with her family. And a granddaughter who is continuing the family connection as a special education teacher at Sherman. So you can see how far-reaching this is. Another person, Katie Haugen, she's a special education teacher at Sam Davie. She passed away this past week as a result of cancer. Katie was recently awarded the Golden Apple Award as well at Sam Davie. She leaves behind her husband and a 3-year-old son. Certainly a life taken far too early. I responded to a board invitation to have a delicious salad lunch at Memorial on Valentine's Day in Laura Brooks's culinary class. I took Steve, my husband, told him it was his Valentine's surprise. I sat next to Trevor, the principal, and he shared the passing of the following as well. Dick Weber, he was a former English teacher at Memorial. John Gallagher, former principal. Jim Bowman, former assistant principal. Connie Ulrich, former PE teacher. And Frank Hagman, former special education aide at Memorial High School. And all this made me think, this has been a tough week for a lot of things. I will continue to work with the Eau Claire School District on strengthening our link to our alumni and retirees so that we can honor and memorialize them as part of our district. I think that's important. Often we do not hear about the events and losses in their lives, and we would very much like to stay connected to all past and present members of the Eau Claire District family, and the board feels that way, as do Marianne and the staff here, so we'll work on that, okay? Need to remind everyone that there are school board candidates running for the open 4 seats available on April 3rd. Those running are Joe Luganbill, Lori Bika, Eric Torres, Tim Nordine. Would you like to stand, Tim? Okay. Joshua Clemens? Here? No. Lori Klinkhammer? Here? No. And John Playwa. Okay. And Marianne already went over the fact that there is a forum on March 6th with the Parent Advisory Council and Student Councils. Thank you for working on that, Ryan. And Lauren, okay, as far as that one goes. And then we have one also on March 8th with 8th at the CVTC, which Marianne talked about as well. Then I did send you all an email about my connection with the students from North Star and the early start, but I had to share something that happened when I went to North Star that day. First of all, meeting with the students was just amazing, but then Tim Scootley, the principal, took me in to see the Pineapple Board, which, have you seen the Pineapple Board anywhere? Yeah. Well, pineapple is a symbol of hospitality, and come on in my room, so they've put up this board for all the teachers to invite each other into their classrooms while they're teaching and they're doing stuff, which I thought was pretty cool. It started out with a couple Post-it notes, and now the thing is just totally covered. So I thought, what a wonderful way to share what we do in our classrooms and to share with each other and to build the relationships I talked about. When people retire or they pass on, we want to keep those connections with families. So I just kind of love going in the schools and walking away with a smile on my face. So that was great. So thank you, board, for allocating me that job, because it was really fun that day. Finally, I want to inform the board that voters approved all 5 local school referendums on the 20th ballot by comfortable large margins. Again, a nice hit in our arms about how people feel about their public schools. So thanks. That concludes my president's report. Student reps, who's going first tonight? Lauren? First of all, thank you for being here. I noticed, I was checking in a district, and they're just having the conversation of putting student reps on their school board. So I think maybe they're looking at Eau Claire. So you guys are good reps for that. So go ahead.
Good evening. I'd like to begin by recognizing the tragedy in Parkland, and in light of that, many Memorial students and clubs have really taken interest in advocating for how we can change that so that a mass shooting like that never happens again in a public school, including students earlier today after school were writing letters to congressmen and women. This is something that students really feel strongly about, as it directly impacts them and it's their safety in school. On a different note, as has been mentioned, the Memorial Student Council has joined the North Student Council in PAC in hosting a candidate forum on March 6th at North High School, so we look forward to preparing for that. And I'd like to extend a congratulations to the 4 Memorial Mathlete teams who competed on Saturday at the university, including one team who took first, with 2 members tying for first individually, so that was exciting for them.
Thank you, Lauren. Ryan?
Good evening. Just some additional information on that candidate forum on March 6th. There will be about 5 to 6 questions we're planning on that will be asked of candidates on student and parent issues. And then immediately following, there will be refreshments and a chance to interact with the candidates in North High School's Commons. And I've heard on Twitter that with the newly formed Sexual Harassment Subcommittee, if help is needed in finding a student to help out, I'd be willing to put you in touch with someone who'd be interested in serving on the subcommittee or doing other work to assist in what they'll be doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. School board committee reports. Who would like to go first? I have several that I've had. You want to go first, Joe?
I can do policy and governance.
Go ahead.
We met on Monday before the weather went south, and we first discussed our SRO policy. We looked over feedback from the Public Defender's Office and Sheriff's Department. I also stopped to thank our students and staff who are on the Academic Recognition Subcommittee, because they've finished their work, and they'll be bringing that to our next Policy and Governance Committee on March 5th, so we can look at that hard work after several months. We also, as a committee, moved to form a new subcommittee of policy and governance to replace the work of academic recognition. Now we'll have another subcommittee put together temporarily to look at issues surrounding student sexual harassment. So that group is will be tasked with looking at a number of policies and making recommendations. And a lot of that work is already going on, but this will be an opportunity to also engage students and staff in that effort. And finally, we talked about a resolution that we're just starting to draft regarding issues of gun safety and protecting students. So you'll be seeing more about that in the coming board meetings. And the Policy and Governance Committee will be taking part in a panel and forum along with a number of other community groups on Monday, March 12th from 6 to 7:30. That'll include representatives from the school district, police department, other community agencies about school resource officers. So there'll be more information to come. It will be at one of our district buildings, and I think we should have that confirmed by tomorrow, and we'll get that sent out to families. But it'll be an opportunity for feedback.
Thanks, Commissioner Luganbill. I'll report on PAC. We met on February 6th. The main topic discussed was a presentation on special education by Director of Special Education, Mandy Van Vliet. Mandy spent considerable amount of time with us, stepping our parents through the continuum of least restrictive environment and inclusion. So thanks, Mandy. PAC also committed to doing the school board candidate forum, and Abby was asked for feedback from PAC on our facility use agreement. It happened that night as well. Also met with LEAP. As chair of LEAP, I attended the CISA 10 CVTC Innovation Day of Learning called Partnering for Success. CISA 10 partners and their 29 districts are invited. It was quite well attended. I went to 2 main sessions, lots around my favorite was a presentation by Kevin Honeycutt, who explicitly talked about increasing the engagement in the learning process for children. A quote I took away from another session was this, so you can tell it was really close to my heart. Play is where ideas audition for a part in the brain's production of understanding. So that hit me since I spent, as you know, a lot of time at the preschool level. We also had a LEAP meeting on February 13th, and we worked through what we're going to present with the board tonight at our work session. As LEAP committee chair, I also took a tour of Little Red, met with a community member, and sat in on a meeting with Eau Claire Public Schools Foundation in Indy, so that was good too. And then finally, the Head Start Policy Committee meeting, we met on February 13th. We covered the usual things they do at their meetings: budget, communications from the Office of Head Start, curriculum, nutrition input, health and program information, and parent engagement. But I would like to share a handout they gave me. So when I'm done doing this, I'm going to give you this great handout from Head Start that gives you a lot of information about the program and how lucky we are to have 123 slots for those kids in Head Start in our district. They did their first checkpoint of data too using Teaching Strategies Gold. I'm going to pass that with the board as well, because you will be able to see within the realm of the program meet and exceeds the benchmarks that they've pulled from their assessment tool, which would be interesting for you to see. So I'll pull that out of my bag as we send this on to some budget development. Want to give that report?
Sure.
Thanks.
Good evening. We did meet with the Budget Development Committee today in this very room. I feel like maybe I haven't left, but we talked about the culinary labs question briefly and got some clarifying questions there that we hope to have presented in the next public board meeting here. We talked again about OPEB. Really, we're in a bit of a holding pattern there, waiting. The consultant that we're working with is crunching some numbers and working on several different options that we're going to be reviewing as soon as she can get through those numbers. We did talk a little bit about the GAP group, which is we're going to be moving forward on a little bit in future discussions. And finally, we talked about athletic fees, which is a topic that's come up a couple times here, and we're making slow progress on sort of a comparative analysis between other districts, Big Ten or the Big Rivers districts. I think were the ones that we were comparing against, and trying to understand what their costs are versus what they charge students compared to what Eau Claire does. And we found some interesting information there, but it's really just preliminary. But it's the beginning of an important process of trying to understand what we want to spend as a district and how we want to subsidize those athletic fees versus what we think the family should pay. With the hope that we can make it certainly more accessible to every student in the district. We're meeting again on March 8th, and that's the report.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? Montessori?
Yes.
Oh, demo trends, go ahead. Commissioner Bika.
We met February 15th, welcomed several new members, and engaged in what was very effective brainstorming for moving forward with evidence-based decisions about school boundary recommendations.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, that takes us on to our legislative update. Commissioner Luganville.
Good evening. I have 4 pieces to share tonight. So there have been efforts in the state capitol now after the tragedy in Florida on universal background checks. There was a change to that. It ended up being blocked. There was legislation to move that to a vote. It was blocked and replaced with a proposal to fund grants for school districts to provide firearms to safety officers. So I'm not sure what that will look like, but we'll hear more from the School Board Association, I'm sure. There has been massive opposition from every public school organization, administrator organization, special education organizations in the state to something called the Teacher Protection Act. And that is still going to be going through for a vote tomorrow, which is very disappointing for a lot of groups. You can go to the wasb.org site and read all of the information about what that will mean. However, local districts will still have some opportunities to have things in policy to prevent some of the effects of that legislation, but not entirely. So it's something we're going to have to be aware of if it moves forward. One positive is the low revenue ceiling and sparsity aid bill, which is now passed in the House, in the Assembly and Senate, and that will be going to the governor's office. And that's kind of a rare bipartisan bill, so that's a little bit of light in that situation. There are currently 66 referenda scheduled for the April 3rd election statewide, as well as the election statewide on April 3rd for Supreme Court, and for the resolution regarding the Wisconsin State Treasurer, which we'll be talking about in just a little bit.
Thank you, Commissioner Luginbill. That takes us to our consent resolution agenda. So I am going to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of February 5th, 2018. Minutes of closed session, February 5th, 2018. Financial report, January 2018. Gifts in the amount of $61,562 for the period of January 1, 2018 through January 31, 2018. Payment of all bills in the amount of $3,984,460.23. And net payroll in the amount of $3,409,647.69 for the period of January 1st, 2018 to January 31st, 2018. Human Resources Employment Report. Calendar for 2018-2019 pay periods. Revisions to Policy 655.1 Activity Passes. An update on enrollment count as of January 12, 2018. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Vu, second by Commissioner Luginbill. Take a roll call count, please. Patty, since there's quite a
Commissioner
bit of funding
Torres?
there.
Yes. Commissioner Bika?
Yes.
Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Harder?
Yes.
Commissioner Luginbill?
Yes.
Commissioner Boone?
Yes.
Thank you. That takes us into individually considered resolutions. I'd like to suspend the rules of the regular meeting for this first 8.1 and hand it over to Abby. Can I have a motion, please, to suspend the rules so that we can have input from the
So moved.
audience? So moved by Commissioner Luginbill. Second by Commissioner Bika. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you.
Thank you. So tonight, our school board has received a petition to attach some property from the Aliva Strum School District to the Eau Claire School District. And so we wanted an opportunity for the family that's making the request to be able to address the board and the board to be able to ask any questions that you've got. And then we'll ask you to vote at the end.
Can you please introduce yourself and give us your address? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Pionic. This is my husband, Brian. We reside at E7535 Marshall Avenue in Strum. We appreciate the time today to visit with you guys and discuss this petition. Currently, we've open enrolled our son into the Eau Claire School District. This is our first year in the district. Our son McCoy is 3. We also have a daughter, Dayton. She's a little over 1. Our son is currently receiving early childhood services through the district, including speech therapy and occupational therapy. He receives most of those services at our daycare provider, Little Bloomers, which is just south on 93. What brings us here today is, of course, to discuss this boundary, and want to give you a little background as to why we chose to open enroll to the district. There's many factors that come to light with this, but I think the biggest one is that in November of 2016, our son, he was 2 at the time, was diagnosed with autism, and that brought many changes for our family and for our son. One of the biggest things we had to incorporate into our lives is a new therapy regimen. He receives something called ABA, or Applied Behavioral Analysis Therapy, roughly 30 hours a week right now in our home and in daycare from a provider here in Eau Claire. We made some daycare changes as well after that diagnosis to better accommodate his therapy schedule, changes in our jobs, lots of changes. But ultimately, the big one that came to light, and kind of sooner than we had anticipated, was what were we going to do about schooling. I think it's included, or Abby had attached a map of where our home falls in terms of the kind of boundary line between Aliva Strum and Eau Claire, and we're right on that line. We've always known that, of course, but in considering schools, we met with both districts, Aliva Strum and Lori Malnori. Actually, we met with her to discuss, and it was evident that Eau Claire just had the capacity to provide a range of program consideration for our son's unique needs, and so that's why we decided to pursue the open enrollment. Fortunately, we were accepted into the district, and we are very grateful and appreciative of that. And with that, brought on this petition to alter the lines, because with open enrollment brings some uncertainty for sure. Where we live, most of our neighbors and our community out in the country there, their families and children all attend Eau Claire. With open enrollment, we're not really sure where our son, where our daughter will end up in school. And that's something we're willing to risk, but this is certainly an opportunity for us to pursue that petition, and for you guys to take that into consideration for us. And we're open to any questions that you may have regarding this, or anything we can do.
Are there any questions from the board? Commissioner Luginbill.
So if I'm understanding correctly, your son is open enrolled, and that's going well. And what you mainly want is, do you want your son to attend Southside schools?
That's one of the considerations, yes.
What are the other ones?
Well, I mean, if we, I guess I worry that, if he's maybe at one school, will that mean our daughter can attend the same school when it comes time for her to go to school?
Okay.
Also concerned, there's the transportation aspect, depending on what school he would go to, including daycare considerations. Lots of changes, and consistency is important for our son, for our family. Those are things we all consider, and kind of that community aspect. Eau Claire is our community. It's where we work, where of course, where we have a lot of our support from family, from our friends, and we want to be a part of that. That's our goal. We certainly can continue to be part of that open enrolling. This just provides a little bit more.
One of the other main things is with McCoy, consistency and stability is a very important thing to maintain. For that, we also as parents need to be consistent and stable, and if, like you say, if we can get him into a Southside school and maintain, I believe we would be in the Robbins school where we're located, our daycare would be able to provide, or buses would provide the proper transportation, whatever else, to make sure that he does receive that consistency.
Any other questions from the board? Your son's at Little Bloomers, which is also one of our 4K sites as well.
Yeah.
Anybody have a more?
I have a question.
Oh,
how are lines drawn?
Well, I'm looking at that too. Sometimes when we look at the lines, so good question. Abby, can you?
Well, a really, really, really long time ago, Probably in some early development, they just drew some lines. Some of them are very interesting to look at. And so we'd have to go back probably in county court records to see, like, when was this boundary established and how did they figure out it was Olivestrom versus Eau Claire. And, but I don't have any of that information available right now.
Commissioner Vu?
I'm just curious, at the current address that you are now at, what are things that are unique to your family that would not be applicable for a relocation of the current site?
I run a small beef operation at our property, set up for that. Yes, we moved there, it was kind of a blank slate, and we made it ours. And to find a property further north within the Eau Claire School District might be price prohibitive, because the closer you get to Eau Claire, the land values increase. So we were able to find a site that worked for us, and we've made it our home.
It was prior to children, and we've been there a little over 5 years now, and you know, things change, of course, when you bring kids into the mix.
Commissioner Bika?
Yes, just for clarification, I don't think that I've heard anything yet that wouldn't be kind of taken care of by district existing policies. I mean, you expressed the concern about the sibling co-enrollment, which is accommodated. Is that correct? Or I'm not hearing anything that seems like it is a unique circumstance.
There are exceptions to all policies. However, when the boundary adjustment was made at the high schools, the board made the decision to move all open enrollment children to North High School and then schools that feed north. So as an open enrolled family, the child with special needs, the autistic child, McCoy, perhaps the IEP could place that child in one of 4 cluster sites, but the daughter technically would be expected to go to north. Exceptions could be made, but those would be viewed as on an individual basis at the school level.
So
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
understand, but I guess my experience so far is the staff is particularly effective at making those kinds of case-by-case decisions. Again, I'm not hearing anything that couldn't be accommodated by district procedures.
Right, it could be accommodated, but at this point to make the determination, that would be premature, yep.
Commissioner Luganville?
Just logistically, Olivestrom voted no on this, so it needs both districts to vote in the affirmative. So if we were to, I mean, legally, is the only option like to go back? Would the only option be to go back to Olivestrom and propose like a land swap or something? Or, I mean, what is the Abby? Maybe you'd have the.
Okay. Yes, Olivestrom, last week, Wednesday night, we were at that meeting. They did vote against that. They are, we would, depending on what your vote was this evening, we have the opportunity to appeal that at the state level. That would be potentially something that we could consider as a next step. But I do know they are at a meeting currently right now, and this is not really involving tonight, of course, but there are some things that they're working on tonight in closed session, and I know that our family is on their agenda looking into some alternative options to,
As you suggest.
Yes. I think the land swap was something that they are currently looking into right now. I just, you know.
Like because this is kind of a gerrymandered line. I mean,
yeah.
So that's the only reason why I'm mentioning that. And I don't know if that's something that our district has done in recent history, where you find you swap with comparable property values between 2 districts and they're close to each other. I don't know, but I just wanted to ask to know all of that.
Yeah, those are really probably the options. At this point in time, we haven't done anything since I've been here in Eau Claire as far as a land swap, but we certainly have lots of odd boundaries and things that, I would think that the board would want to consider looking at. because it is kind of unusual that you kind of have these little pockets or these little corners of different areas of the district, so.
Can I entertain a motion by the board? Commissioner Wu?
This is a question for Abby. What similar situation did we have in regard to this situation?
Well, we've had a couple of requests. We had one in February 15, and then we had one last year as well. And the one last year is still being decided. We're waiting. There was a decision that was made, and so we're in the appeal process timeline for that one. I think that the one in 2015, both school boards voted no, and that might have been an Oliva Strum one request as well, from Oliva Strum to come to Eau Claire. The other one was Elk Mount to Eau Claire. Since I've been in this position, those are the only two that have, this is the third one that's come to the board, and they always come in February because there's a state statute that says the board needs to act on it during February, and then if the decision isn't favorable or the petitioners want to appeal it, then there's a specific timeline, and that typically happens in April and May. Are you asking about, does that answer your question? Okay, great, thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Luganville?
I'm just wondering if, and I don't know what Oliva Strum is meeting about tonight. Would it be prudent for our district to postpone making any sort of decision until Oliva Strum makes whatever their decision is? It's if they're meeting about it in some way?
I can tell you from state statute, we have to have a decision from our board and a vote by the 28th of February.
Oh, okay.
So can I call the question? Somebody make a motion? Commissioner Luganville?
I mean, I'm just trying to logistically see what our options even are right now. Because it seems like our only legal option is in my opinion, to deny, because we don't have any further information about any other arrangement that could be made with another district. So not having that information, I feel like that's our only legal route. But I don't know if that's correct, incorrect. We haven't dealt with that before.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
And this is just from my experience in navigating this system, is I think what Oliva Strum is doing tonight is separate from a vote tonight. From what I understand, I think it doesn't, whatever your vote is tonight, no bearing on what could I think tonight is focused on, yes, Oliva Strum said no. Depending on what you say, we could follow the path of the appeal process. What Oliva Strum is working on behind the scenes right now, or at least what I've been informed, I think that's something that would come to light as a separate, something that they would propose to you guys as a district in a separate occasion.
Board is initiated type
yes.
thing from their perspective.
Because I think what we petitioned was the landowner petition. There is a school board proposal or school board, a land transfer initiation by the school board. That's a whole nother statute.
That's completely separate, and maybe it shouldn't have even been brought up here, but
because it's confusing.
In response to your earlier question.
I think knowing that, I think that
I can. Your son, he's our district child.
Yes, yes.
He is now, and I would like to move that we look into annexing your piece of property to the Eau Claire School District. Is that stated okay?
The suggested motion
based on the data we received, would be to approve or deny the motion to attach the property to the Eau Claire School District.
So I move that, and I need a second. Mhm. To do what Patty said, as far as the verbiage, to attach. Yes. I'm not really good at motion.
I understand the rationale or the intention. I don't know that we can do that. We can vote, that it doesn't rain tomorrow, but are we competent to do that?
I think what it does, Commissioner Torres, and we'll leave my motion on the floor, is allows the family to appeal with the Department of Public Instruction, correct?
I believe if we deny it, it allows them to appeal, right?
No.
Or either way, they can
Well,
appeal?
I think technically either way, we could pursue
Right.
an appeal.
Okay.
It would determine if we would want to. There's a financial implication with that as well in order to appeal it at the state level. But if I feel, if you say no, that might change things, it bears.
But I think we've already, as a district, consented to open enrolling this child to our district. To me, we've made that commitment to this family and child already.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's fine. It's the other.
Commissioner Wu, thank you.
Can I still ask another quick question
Sure.
before we move on with your motion? What about the district staff? What would you suggest or educate us more about the subject so that we have sufficient decision-making piece?
I'm not sure what else we can do. We sent the map and looked at that. We provided the petition and offered to answer any questions. I didn't receive any questions. So I guess I'm not sure what additional information you would need. The only thing that we didn't talk about tonight is the value of the property. And that was on the petition that was sent to you, and that's $301,700. I don't have the assessed rate. I don't have that sheet with me right now. But that would be, again, moving to take $301,700 worth of assessed value from the Aliva Strum School District and attaching it to ours. And so that's one piece of information that I know that we didn't highlight earlier. If there was other things that needed to be, we could certainly research that, but I think as far as the time goes, we know we need the board to make a decision by February 28th on this request in particular.
Commissioner Harder.
So, Abby, I think there's a question about are we even allowed to vote yes? My sense of this is we're allowed to vote yes. It's not going to make it happen. It won't happen by our voting yes. It can't happen because Aliva hasn't agreed. But we can say, would we allow it or not?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so,
Your decision is independent of Aliva's decision.
Commissioner Luganville?
Yeah, the way I'm understanding it, I guess, is voting yes on your motion does nothing. However, what it does do is potentially send a message to that school board that maybe moving forward we'd be open to something with them. One of my concerns, though, I guess, is precedent. And when the board made a decision regarding open enrollment, we made it with equity between the two high schools in mind. And so I'm not as concerned with that in this case because of how this map is drawn. I mean, there's people beyond them who are in the district. So I'm not as concerned in that case. However, I think, in my opinion, the solution to an issue like that is not household by household, family by family petition. It's probably more working with those school districts to clean up that line and do the property swaps. That, to me, would be a more equitable approach that wouldn't potentially lock us into a precedent that we don't want to set.
True, but you should look at some of what the property looks like west of Eau Claire and what is not Eau Claire and what is. I mean, Commissioner Harder.
well, I think for me, I really feel like the question of how Aliva would interpret this is the most important thing for me, is is it seen as some kind of hostile move on our part to say yes? Because, you know, they're neighbors of ours, we want to work with them, and I think if there was a yes vote, I would want to be sure it's interpreted as, hey, we're open to this if you guys are.
You just stated it. Anyone else? So we have a motion on the floor. We need a second for the motion. Commissioner Luganville?
I will not second it,
Okay.
because I'll be voting no. And the reason is just from what I just stated, where I believe that a solution with this particular issue is working at the district level and cleaning this up. Because I think that if we do it individually on this, we're kind of adding a lot of asterisks to a decision that the board just made about equity. And I want us to be careful about that. And I also know why Aliva Strum voted no on it, which is the current proposal would hurt them financially, you know. So I don't want us to send a message as a board that is something that we are not considering. So I feel like probably a better motion would be to deny it, but to potentially make a motion to communicate to the Aliva Strum district that we're interested in a conversation with them about property swaps in this particular area. That would be my suggestion, but that's why I'll be voting no on that particular motion.
So my motion is on the floor. I figured the motion that I put on the floor would allow for you to appeal it, and that would be part of the conversation. So should I rescind the motion and we restate it? Abby?
Can I just share something going through the appeal process? The appeal process, you know, assuming we have differing votes from both school boards, the appeal process isn't going to resolve what Commissioner Luganville is talking about. That's just for the appeal board to just review the process and how were decisions made, and really talking through. Each school district has an opportunity to talk about why the decision was made the way that it was made. And so that I just want to make sure that the board fully understands that by having two different votes doesn't necessarily meet what Commissioner Luganville is saying as far as, talking district to district about lines. I hope that's not confusing.
I'm a little confused, but that's okay. So a yes vote with the motion on the floor would just allow us to continue to have the conversation. Yes? No? No. So my motion kind of dies because I don't have a second. Yeah. Right? No one, there's not a second for my motion. No. So then my motion dies and open for a different motion on the floor. Go ahead, Commissioner Luganville.
I move that we deny the motion to attach the property to the Eau Claire Area School District. And the second part of my motion is that the Eau Claire School Board communicate with the Aliva Strum School District in an official capacity to set up a meeting to discuss the boundary and the properties in this particular area of the map. So that's my two-part motion.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Let's go a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Torres? Yes. Commissioner Bika? Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle?
No.
Commissioner Harder? Yes. Commissioner Luganville?
Yes.
Commissioner Boo?
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Takes us on to the resolution supporting the Office of State Treasurer. And you want to introduce that one, Commissioner Luganville?
Yes. If we could pull it up on the screen, Patty. So just, again, we talked about this briefly at our last board meeting. There will be a referendum question on the April 3rd ballot. The catalyst for having that there is to amend the state constitution. The state legislature in 2 consecutive sessions has to approve it. And so that did happen. These last 2 sessions in the state legislature. And so on April 3rd, there will be a referendum question, and a yes vote would remove the office of state treasurer and move the power and authority of every area of that office under the governor and lieutenant governor of the state. And a no vote would keep it as it is in the Constitution and in statute. So why this impacts us, you'll see down in the fifth whereas, where it talks about the Common School Fund. And that is a very significant fund in our state that provides a great deal of revenue every year to school district libraries. You'll also see there are other areas that are impacted by this. Why this matters is because if that position is taken away, the committees under that office are gone as well, and with it the oversight. And so those dollars and that financial control is it would be in jeopardy. So that's why it's before you tonight as a board, and up for a vote, but and we can read it as well.
I just want to comment too that I just went out and looked. There are other districts that have passed resolutions like this already. Just so you know, we're not the first. And I think I sent you a couple links on that. Right? Any other comments from the board? Seeing none, can we go for a vote?
Do we want to read it?
Am I assured that board members have read it, or do you want us to read it?
Has everyone read it? Okay, then we don't need to.
Yeah, so roll call vote, please.
We need a motion.
Oh, somebody move, please.
I move approval of this
Catch.
resolution.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Luganbill, second by Commissioner Harder. Let's take a roll call vote, please. I'm trying to speed us up and I'm
Commissioner
screwing up.
Torres?
Yes.
Commissioner Bika? Commissioner Hambuck-Boyle?
Yes.
Commissioner Harder?
Yes.
Commissioner Luganbill?
Yes.
Commissioner Boo?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. That moves us to our committee work session. We have one committee report. It's the update regarding Little Red Nature Campus. So I think that's Anna. Introduce yourself and give us your address, please. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Anna Ribicki. I live at 1710. Let's see if I can remember my address or if I need my notes if I'm too nervous. Let's see. I better just read it.
Don't be nervous. Take a deep breath.
1710 Russ Street in Eau Claire. And I'm here tonight on behalf of Indy and to provide you a little update on our work. Also here are Laura Lash and Lindsay Miklas and Shelley Peters and Elizabeth Harder and committee member Amy Trainer. So thanks for being here, guys. And I also wanted to just recognize Erica Zur because she actually put together this presentation and then had the good sense to get out of town when your meeting was postponed. So I'm the understudy, and apologies.
You are not an understudy.
Actually, I have been an understudy for King and I. It's a really long story. We shouldn't go there. We have some pictures here of the Little Red campus. So just enjoy those as we go. So as you know, just a quick review on how we got here. As you remember, we were in front of the board in December. And then on January 8th, this board empowered Indy to formally develop this proposal on behalf of the board. And there's your resolution. In recent weeks, that development has really been focused on working on this DPI grant that came out on January 26th. So we knew it was coming, but the application actually has only been out for, what, 3.5 weeks. On the 5th, LEAP was back before you just to clarify some of the supports that Indy would need to successfully complete that application. So there was a whole list of things, of offices we needed to talk to and information we needed to get and that type of thing. So really, since that meeting, we've been working with the district very closely. Many of you around this table have experienced this personally, so thank you. In order to complete that grant, it's due the 9th of March, and that means actually paper copy in Madison on the 9th. We figured we would need to get it to you about by the 1st in order for you, and that's best case scenario. That's like you get it to you before your March 5th meeting, approve it as is, and get it down to Madison. So since that meeting, mostly we've been, as I said, we've been working with the district mostly through Executive Director of Administration Tim Libham to gather all that information needed and complete the grant writing. So you know that our goal was the 1st. Well, you know, while we really appreciate the efforts of the folks in this room and the folks who aren't in this room who helped us, it's been a really busy 2 weeks, and we know everybody has done their best to respond to questions on a really quick time frame. So we are super grateful for that. But as a group, we've decided that we would like to postpone this application and look at submitting it this time next year. So we just think that there's a lot of information this board is going to need. So sort of both for the application itself and then all the associated questions that we know that you're going to have before you're willing to authorize this school. And that authorization is a component of the application itself. So we just knew once we really dug into this application that it's very detailed and requires your full support. And we just didn't feel like we could confidently ask for it at this point. So our new deadline of 12 months from now, we just think is best for the ultimate success of the project. It was certainly a difficult decision to make and disappointing for our group, especially after we all got so revved up and we were working so hard. But you know, we acknowledge that really hard work, and it's not wasted. You know, that's all work that needs to be done, and it's work that will feed this project and also feed our application in a year. So tonight, I just want to give you a quick overview on just why we're here, why we think the program is important, what that work we've been doing over the last 2 weeks has been, and I'm going to sort of break it out in terms of committees that you see listed there. I want to briefly touch on the educationally disadvantaged students and our work in that area. Talk about what we see as coming next for this project and what we need from you guys next, and then how we see the next few weeks hopefully going. So why do we keep showing up here at your meetings? Why do we keep going to conference rooms on snowy evenings and talking about this with ourselves? Why are we meeting as committees up to 3 times a week and putting other things aside? Well, we wanted to provide a different approach to education and have that be available within the Eau Claire Area School District. We want an alternative choice for our middle schoolers. And we want it to coexist with the strong and inventive and vibrant universal program that's going on. We want it to be another choice. And we think that together our district will be stronger having those kinds of choices for families. So what would this choice look like? So this you might be familiar with, at least I am, from being 12. So this is a middle school day. It starts early, it ends early afternoon. As you see, the colors are representing different subject matters. Erica put this together, and I think it's very cute. So, so different subject matters throughout the day in discrete periods with the passing time in between. So, so there's the student at the bottom. Oh no, my student has disappeared. Well, there should be a student at the bottom. I think my animations aren't working. And the student is going to get that rainbow of learning throughout the day. So here is what a day could look like at LRNC. This is not set in stone, it's just an example. So the day might start later, it might end later. There may be time in the morning before that student starts that big chunk of learning in the morning. Lunch could maybe be longer and have the student involved in prep and cleanup and that kind of thing. So while, let's see, oh, these are working. Some of them are anyway. So you'll see that the subject matters are sprinkled out throughout the day, and let's just pretend a bunch of those moved to that first block where they were supposed to, okay? If they behaved, they would all be over there in that first 150 minutes. And you would see that, you know, although this day is set up quite differently and the learning is organized differently, that same content is being hit. It's just being done in an interdisciplinary way. So this is an alternative, and what are the things that are different? As we saw in that schedule, the learning is structured in a different way. And we think that it will really do best in an autonomous atmosphere. So while certainly it's possible this could be in a building, and we have lots of cool things going on in our district buildings, we think that to do things differently in the way that we would like, we need to be in a charter atmosphere. It could be a beneficial environment for students who struggle with that current structure or schedule. It's just going to be a smaller school, and I've actually been surprised talking to people in town that a lot of them have left the district and gone to private schools, not because of philosophical problems with public schools, they just want something smaller. And especially when we've been talking to some of our special ed families, that's something that we've heard several times. There's the Time Outdoors, which is a huge part of this program. And we'd like it to be a choice for all families, but it doesn't mean it's for all families. I know in my family I have one kiddo who I think would do really great at an LRNC. A kid who's super active, loves being outside, loves delving into a project like, say, disassembling a boat motor, which is something she did at school the other day. And like, that's great. I have another kid who like thrives in the atmosphere of, you know, a traditional school. So it's like, he does great and he's kind of indoorsy. And so this might not be the best for each kid, even within a family. And so it's not that we think it's the best for everyone, we just think it should be a choice for everyone. It's also a teacher-powered administration, so a different choice for teachers, and we think that that will make a different experience for students. What that means is that there's no principal, and that administrative duties are led by a lead teacher who's mostly in the classroom, but doing a chunk of time doing admin, and also other administrative duties are among the other teachers. So those teachers who are in the classroom every day are really responsible for the success or the failure of their program. And they're the ones who are going to make changes and get training and that kind of thing. So, we have been busy, as I've mentioned. There's been a big push over the last couple of weeks. And while we're not ready to submit that grant application, we have made a lot of progress on several different fronts. Committees have been meeting between 1 and 3 times a week, as I mentioned, and been doing a lot of work otherwise. So I'm not going to be able to tell you everything that we've done because, so just know, like, I'm going to try to go fast, and so I apologize to everyone in the room who's done things I'm not going to mention, but we'll just try to hit the high points. So our educational program development, we have a team that we call Education and Research. This is a group of, I think, about 4 Indy members and then 3 district staff members, teachers, including 1 member of LEAP, and they are one of those frequent meter groups. They've been busy. They've focused in on, you know, that the program organization being project-based learning, the curricular focus being outdoor education, and they've also looked at the dimensions of learning as being sort of the basis for our assessment system that could grow out of there. So some of those are things they had to hit for the grant, so just so you know. Some of the other things they've done. They've talked about school population. This is somewhat in flux, as of course facility is somewhat in flux, but we've talked about different ways of phasing students in. We may start with more than 1 grade, may start with 1 grade, may start with a smaller student population the first year and build up over those first 3 years. They have sketched out what they believe would be good staff positions and ratios for those kids. So I mentioned the lead teacher. They've also sketched out what they think they need in terms of other instructional staff and other kinds of staff. They've talked about the school day. As we mentioned, may start later and end later, and we need to continue those discussions in terms of transportation, which we know will be implicated. And it will be with the school calendar too. So, you know, we're dedicated to providing transportation. I know that's district policy, but it's also something that removes barriers to attendance. So, thoughts on school calendar are currently, so if a traditional program would have, say, 12 weeks in the summer off and year-round would have 6, this might be somewhere in the middle. We might start with something like 9 weeks off in the summer, and then distribute some of those weeks off throughout the year, making sure they overlap with other vacations of other school students, so families can have that time, but they've been working on that. They've talked about Nature Campus a lot. This is an exciting area of the proposal and how that would integrate into the rest of the district. They've talked about different ways to do school lunch. So they've had some preliminary conversations with the district about the school lunch program and what being part of it means and what options there are. They've also investigated opting out and what grant support you might get, that kind of thing. They're also looking at different kinds of equipment that's grant funded. So things like science lab stuff, tech stuff, you could potentially buy with grant funds. We know we will not need tables. We have been there recently, and boy, are there enough tables there already, and desks and filing cabinets. And so we would be very happy to not spend grant money on those and just use the ones that are out there. Some are actually sort of retro cute at this point. They've also looked into some training and development stuff, both for teachers and for the indie folks. And that, again, is stuff that would be grant funded potentially. So work's still needed. Really developing that full timeline and budget that goes with it. So for the life of the grant, as well as ongoing, we just need to have all the boxes filled of, what equipment's going to cost, what transportation's going to cost, how lunch is going to work. So all the things sort of we need to be nailed down before we come before you, we think, with a really full picture. We would like to work with LEAP and budget development to work out some of those details and then come back to you. And we hope, by this summer that we will have a pretty good idea what this thing's going to cost and then come to you and just see what's possible. All right, so facilities. The building, there it is. It's so cute. So here's Little Red. This is Little Red from sort of the back field. Little Red, I feel like, is like the biggest draw and the biggest drawback of this program. Don't you guys feel that way? So it's really something that gets people going and excited. But it's also a huge question mark. So this has been a primary focus of our group, as you guys probably know, since we were first approved in July. We had an initial meeting with Buildings and Grounds in September and got some initial numbers, and you have a version of those along with your report that you received. But we weren't really able to dig in with them again until the last 2 weeks. So we just need a lot more information still from the district in terms of documentation and other building related info. And we also really need the chance to sit down and discuss the program, what the needs of this program are as opposed to anything else going into that building. We also have some ideas on phasing, wondering if phasing renovation might make this more doable for the district. And so we'd, like to talk to them more about what options might exist. And because Buildings and Grounds is super busy, which is great because lots of stuff is going on, maybe that needs to involve other community partners, but it just, we just need to make some progress on that front. So here's some things that we know, and you can't really see it, but this is looking into that beautiful IMC room. It just has amazing windows. It's a really large room, and it seems to be in decent shape. So this is when you walk into the lobby. There's a large lobby space, and that's the IMC and library space. So we have those additional initial renovation costs. We know that some updates are going to be required. Things like, the boiler was like a $300,000 item that we understand is, going to be dealt with earlier. We have some ideas on utility increases because, of course, utilities are being run out there, but what they would increase, again, what maintenance would increase having students there. We've also done some research into other facilities because we know we need a plan B and C and D. So we've looked at other spaces in the district that might have space. We actually went and toured the old Fanny Hill that's now Fellowship Alliance Church. Kua Vang is a member of one of our committees, and she got us connected out there, and it actually looks amazing. They've done some work on it and has the land out there as well. We've also talked to the UWC about their space they have at the Priory, which is over 100 acres as well. So look at these kiddos. So these kiddos are out at Little Red in 1985 planting prairie seeds. We got this picture from Karen Voss. So we would really love for this to work out at Little Red. We think it's an ideal spot for this kind of a program and a great way for this district to offer an alternative to kids. We want to revitalize that facility, with the community and for the community. I think it could be a really good thing for us in Eau Claire. Having that nature campus component out there, I think it would just be an amazing way to include all interested teachers and students and other community members and have lots and lots of connections to this space. Really, we want learners at Little Red again. So fundraising. Here are some of the things we've done in the last 2 weeks. We've had some initial communications with the district on how it would be structured. We met with the Eau Claire Public Schools Foundation, as Commissioner Humboldt-Boyle mentioned. We have begun meetings, and we have some others scheduled with fundraising professionals. We have been told we need permission of the board to fundraise. And of course, to do that, we really need to know what the full budget is and, you know, what the grant could cover, what it's not going to cover, what the district can do, what the district can't do, and how we might fill that gap. We're actually really looking forward to this part. It's been great just in the last, month or two, after first having been approved by you guys, to go out in the community and talk about this proposal. You would not believe the amount of people who think that it's also their proposal, because they had that idea too. We've mentioned it to people and said, oh, I was talking about this 5 years ago, or we had an initial meeting 3 years ago, or, you know, it's just such a good idea that it's been springing up from all different places in our community. So I think the support is there. I think the energy is there. And so we just need to talk about how we're going to harness it. Governance. So in the last 2 weeks, we have incorporated Indy as a nonprofit, did legal research on a whole bunch of different things, including policies and laws and regulations and how the school would be connected with those. We've developed recommendations on governance board composition and researched governance board training, and we've gotten estimates from a couple of different groups. ISN means Innovative Schools Network, and WGSN is Wisconsin Green Schools Network. So they're both sort of charter expert folks and do this kind of training. And we've completed several of the grant application sections on governance and demographics and equal access. Things we still need to do. We need to form a governance board. So it's important to Indy that we don't just, as a planning committee, then become the governance board. The board is the one that's really going to see this thing off the ground. We think that we're the seed planters, but in terms of creating a team that's really dynamic and capable of taking the school into existence, we want people from diverse backgrounds and have different experiences and different expertises, things that we can't provide the school. So that's going to be a really fun thing, is to identify and recruit those people. And those are the people who are going to be eventually hiring and approving budgets and approving curriculum. They're going to make some really big decisions. So it's important to us that we take time and don't rush in 2 weeks and make a governance board, but really do it right. We need to incorporate the governance board as a nonprofit corporation. That is a condition of implementation. Again, we want to consult with those charter expert type groups and do a really good job with their training. We need to do things like write an admissions policy and write articles and bylaws and negotiate what autonomies we might need under policy and law. So communications and outreach I put together, that's actually 2 committees, but we've actually been pretty busy with things sort of that aren't directly related to the grant, but we were really excited to get out there and do some things. So this was maybe 3 weeks ago. In fact, it was the picture on the previous slide. We had a meeting where we invited a whole bunch of community leaders to a planning meeting, and like 50 of them showed up for 3 hours on a Sunday, and we had an outside facilitator, and we just got input from a whole bunch of people on this project. One highlight was identifying people and groups who we might want to get connected with and who might want to support the project in one way or another. So that could be fundraising connections, or people who might serve on the board, or people who might come and do a special program. Anyway, so we have a lot to follow up on. We also did a middle school staff meeting, introduced them to the project and got their input. We met with middle school principals. Again, this has been a few weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks or something, but we met with them. And continued communicating with the public through Indy's website and Facebook page and mailing list. So it's important for us, even though we're really digging into this sort of research and internal stuff in writing, that we're also having it be a very open process and friendly, and hopefully involving our community members. So on this educationally disadvantaged piece, this is something that we also are quite focused on, both in sort of the education research side and the outreach side. We're continuing to identify barriers for these kiddos, both for finding the program and for thriving in a program like this. We've been communicating with district special ed staff, with McKinley staff, with SEPTA parents to get their input, because we really want to be using those resources to design the program in a way that meets these kids' needs. Members of our team are going to be attending the Every Teacher a Leader Summit, which is coming up on March 9th and 10th. And that's actually kind of a cool team, because I think it's 2 Indy members and then 2 to 3 district staff members who are going to come together and spend some time over a weekend getting professional coaching on how best to serve the educationally disadvantaged students. That's what our application for that event focused on. And we know this depends heavily on really fully integrating into the district and just making sure that this program is very accessible and well-known, and just being fully part of the admissions procedures and programs already in place. So something that we'll just need more dialogue on as we go forward. And we also know it will include a marketing and outreach campaign, so we're going to be looking to, how we make sure we have materials available, multiple mediums, multiple languages, have lots of different ways that people are going to be able to contact us and participate. So what's next? Okay, so this is just kind of cool, right? So here is Karen Voss in 1985, planting the prairie at Little Red. And here's Karen Voss a few weeks ago snowshoeing out at Little Red. She's just one of many people in our community who have a deep history with this school and that land out there. So in order to continue developing this proposal, we need to partner with the board, and we need a commitment from you that you want to see it fully developed and you want it to be a project of the district. So what does that mean to us? You've heard what we've been doing. So what can we do as partners? Well, in your report, you got what I called requested assurances. So that's just a formal way of saying, like, here are some things we want to know from you. We would love to know that you want this school to become a reality. You have approved us to develop it, and that's great. And I think that we have really seized on that and done a lot of good work. But we really need to know that you want it to become a reality. And, we would love for it to open in 2019. That was our original goal. And if there's a way for that to happen, that's fantastic. But let's at least talk about 2020. We need to know that you support this school having the high degree of autonomy that's required. It's required both by this DPI grant and by Wisconsin law. So the state really seems to be emphasizing the autonomy thing this time around. So it may look a little bit different than you remember if you were around when like a McKinley or a Montessori came into existence. But this governance board, has to have autonomy over things like the budget and the curriculum, admissions and personnel. So we need to know that's going to be satisfactory to this board. We also need to know that the district's going to do some things on their side in terms of this building. So there are still some unknowns in our spreadsheet about the building, and we need to get some people out there to do some inspections and just get those remaining estimates. So again, on your report, you received an attachment with some numbers on it, and there are just still some blanks to fill in. So we would like a commitment that you guys are going to do that by some date certain. And we suggested April 30th, that you would have those inspections completed and the estimates received. And then we would like by a date certain to know what the board is willing to commit to the renovation. And then we'll know hopefully the whole picture of what it will cost. We'll know what the board is willing to commit. And we'll know if there's a gap there that you'd be asking us to fundraise for. We'd also like this board to give, clear direction to district administration that it's going to cooperate fully in this process. And that just means, sharing information, fully responding to questions, letting Indy meet with staff as needed, that kind of thing. And there's also a piece in here about our current liaison, Mr. Libham, we know is going to be retiring, and we are saddened by that because he has been fantastic. But we just need to know what the process is going to be following his retirement. So, you know, what it boils down to is, you know, do you want this thing or do you not want this thing? I mean, we are very committed to this, and if needed, you know, we will pursue it in with other avenues, and we know those are available. We want to do it here. We want to do it at Little Red, and we wanted to do it with you guys. But we know that we could go to a neighboring district. We could go to another kind of authorizer. We really believe in this educational model, and it's not because we think anything that's currently going on is bad or faulty. We think it's serving a lot of students really well, but we know that this community is hungry for choice, and we think that this is a choice that we could provide them, and it could be really successful here. I mean, this is not new. It's working other places, and it could really work here. So we think that this new timeline allows us to really do this right, to really bring you a full proposal that's had time to be well developed, and will ultimately be successful. So how do we see these next few weeks? Just a quick timeline of what we would love to see. So instead of having that lovely grant application for you right this moment, we would like to take the next 12 months, continue this hard work in partnership with the district, and continue the planning phase, basically over the next 12 months. We would like to be considered at your next meeting for a vote of support of this project. And that doesn't mean that the school is going to all of a sudden come to life on March 5th. But what we would like to see is you supporting us with those assurances we mentioned that you would like to see it happen, and that you're going to provide those assurances. We would like to continue working with LEAP and going through budget, and I think I have the date wrong there because I heard it's actually March 8th the budget is meeting. But what we'd like to do is, you know, go through those channels to actually create a planning budget over the next 12 months. And that is certainly not to be paid. We are volunteers, and we're going to remain volunteers. But there are some out-of-pocket costs of things like, you know, incorporating a governance board. There's a filing fee. Printing materials and getting them translated, there's a fee. So with no budget, it's just not possible to do some of that work. So we would love to come back to you on the 26th with that developed planning budget and have you approve that. So thanks again for your time. I know we just keep showing up here. And with that, I'd be happy to take your questions.
Does the board have questions? Commissioner Luganbill.
Could I get clarity on number 4? What, I guess the bottom part, I understand wanting to know who the new liaison will be.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought from number 4 that we said that as a board, that we already made that sort of commitment to having staff doing that. So can you just explain that for me?
I guess it wouldn't hurt to restate it, just to make sure that we have that access and are able to do the, you know, have that communication.
I just took it that you put them all in a list. So it was all recapped for the board to have a...
Well, we did. And
Yeah.
last time we were here, I think it's actually on page 1, you know, LEAP, those bullet points, LEAP did ask that Indy be allowed those resources. So if you look on page 1 in background, and we really have appreciated the amount of access we have had to the district since that time. It has definitely improved. And as I've mentioned, people have put in a lot of time doing their best to respond to our requests. But we really think, for instance, that we would like to have an in-person meeting with Buildings and Grounds so we can have a discussion. And that has not been able to happen yet.
Anyone else? Commissioner Vu.
Thank you for taking the time to articulate the group's effort and group's desire. And you do ask a very important question, and I don't want to not respond it sincerely. Not responding sincerely would take away time from your part and time from the district that could have been spent somewhere else more fitly and appropriately. What I meant by that is that I can see the passion that you have. I can see the need of the board's assurance that you're asking. But I think the board also has a responsibility to follow through its vision and mission. It's stated clearly that the board wants to prepare all students for post-secondary success, at least for this current board's vision and mission. It's possible that that might change in the future, but the awe is almost opposite of choice. Alternative. Is alternative or choice the same as awe? An example of awe would be we want to see more research, more articulation about how you will address awe. In other words, there are students whose growth data that support growth isn't consistent with achievement. We know Eau Claire School did well in achievement, but it's not consistent with growth for all students. So what is the district doing about its desire for all? Are we going to spend more money for choice or more money for all? If you don't address the answer to all, I might have a hard time voting later on to grant assurance or not to grant. Again, I'm asking this because you have 12 months to work on it so that you can articulate the priority for the district better, stronger. I too want the district to grow for all.
Well, and I appreciate those thoughts, and that's a really important question, is does this fit in the overall picture for the district? Because of course, we want to serve students all, we want to do our best for all students, absolutely. Now, in my opinion, not all students are the same. So serving all students does not mean serving all students the same. I think that there are different kinds of learners, and there are different kinds of environments that serve those students best. So in my opinion, having a diversity of types of settings for students does not mean we are not serving all students. It means we're really doing our best for all kids because we recognize that some need something different than others.
Commissioner Harder?
Yeah, I guess that's my personal philosophy is sort of in that vein, which is that choice is not mutually exclusive with serving all. In fact, it's a great way to support serving all. It's because of those differences, by encouraging and fostering choices like this one, not exclusively this one, but as a start, this one, or as a next step, this one, that is part of our mission of serving all as the best we can. So that's the way I see it. Other people may have other perspectives, certainly.
Commissioner Luganville?
Two logistical things I'm thinking about that might be helpful for the board in keeping with whether it's March 5th or the meeting after to go through this. I think it would be important for the board to know kind of more specifically in number 2 about what that looks like, what that relationship looks like, because I do think there's a very level of understanding among board members. Some board members were here during discussions with McKinley or Montessori, some were not. But even if they were there for those discussions, it's different here. So in terms of the autonomies available. So I think it'll be important for the board to know kind of just a general synopsis of what that looks like, and specific to like the budget, curriculum, admission, personnel. With autonomy, what does that look like in terms of the relationship between the Human Resources Department, the Business Department, Buildings and Grounds? You know, so just, I think it would be important for the board to have that picture just to kind of map it out and make sense of it, because it's a lot to take
Oh, I
in
agree, and
for
that's why
everyone,
we
you
knew
know.
we really didn't have a shot getting a yes tonight, because there is so much to talk about. And I have given you in your report, there is a reference down at the bottom. So there are actually two documents I'm specifically referencing in terms of autonomies. So you'll see that there's a section of the grant application itself, as well as a section of law. So you can either look those up, or I'd be happy to follow up. But there'll be some specific things in there, at least in terms of what the autonomies required are. Now, how exactly those would work in our district, I think that's something that we should talk about.
Yeah, I just know that it'll be good, that would be important for the board to know, and just have it in front of them and kind of mapped out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to make a comment. Commissioner Vu, I think your point's well taken relative to what do we mean by all, and the equity that we as a board have really strongly adhered to, okay? I feel when we sat here at our last board meeting and listened about alternative contexts for learning, we heard about the HOPE program at North and about the Success program at Memorial. We also have 2 charter schools already. I mean, McKinley has been providing an alternative context that has been needed in our district for students. And it continues to provide that and has never been wanting for people to be part of that program. I mean, it's in quite demand. From what I'm hearing about the alternative learning contexts the last time at our board meeting, that is the same. So I look at this as in that same context. It provides a learning context that is an alternative for students to be successful. I look at, as we do that in special education all the time, as far as looking at what the needs of a child are and really looking deeply on how we can make their learning and their experience and their relationships really meaningful in a context of learning. So I look at this as expanding that piece for all kids. I look at the environment and the context that would be open for our entire district to use is amazing as well, in the sense that we don't have that right now. And I think as a board it would behoove us as well to really do some research on our own as to what other districts have been doing in this realm as well, because I think it's time for us to step forward relative to this conversation as a board. Anyone else? Commissioner Luganville? Commissioner Bika, I didn't see your light on. No? Yeah.
So I guess I'll speak to the assurances piece first. And I really empathize as a grant writer myself. I understand the dilemma that you have to invest considerable effort first and the outcome is unknown. Personally, I would not be able to vote on any of these assurances at this time because I was really waiting to see the grant application, because that's where everything is operationally defined. These assurances are vague. They're full of uncertainty. And I just want to say that directly. Even number 4 is uncertain to me. I thought we agreed for a period of time up to the grant deadline and those 40 hours. This extends beyond a retirement. So again, I'm really sympathetic, but there would have to be considerable detail provided to these assurances and every aspect operationally defined. I guess and again, all due respect, one of the points in the work remaining is develop a mission and a vision statement. That has to lead. What I have not seen yet is the student. I've seen a building, programs. I don't see students here. When you're in special education, the student is there. And that's the piece that's absent for me. So I can't speak strongly enough to lead with the student, and that's the mission. And I appreciate in the PowerPoint the piece about, you know, further work on educationally disadvantaged. I want that to lead because it, you know, the building doesn't matter to me. It never has. So I to say direct about many more details have to come with these assurances, or I simply can't respond.
Well, I'm sure you're sensitive to the chicken and egg problem we're having here. This board has empowered us to formally develop this proposal on its behalf. But as I've mentioned, we have not been able to meet with district staff. So we know you have a lot of questions. There are just things we're going to need to do with the district in order to answer those questions. So I don't think it's too much to ask that we receive information from the district, be able to meet with, you know, people from different departments, have them freely share information. I mean, that seems like stuff that we'd all be saying yes to at this point. So I guess if there's concern about that, then I would like to know more and why.
Can we have someone respond? Commissioner Harder?
If I may, I mean, I thought I heard concern about sort of the open-ended nature of the ask, particularly for taking that as an example. That when we have a clean kind of 40-hour ask that we voted on last time, that was easy to quantify and kind of understand. This is more open-ended. So perhaps putting an hour figure on this would be helpful, for example, on this point.
And just to clarify, that 40, there's, I think, been a little confusion about that 40-hour ask. That 40 hours was 40 hours of teacher time compensated in addition to their regular duties. So that's what you approved. Or I guess what LEAP approved. I'm not exactly sure what the mechanism was. So it was not that we only wanted 40 hours of time total. We were going forth as this was a partnership, and we were going to be having discussions probably with a number of people, but we wanted specifically 40 hours of teacher time because we knew that we really needed some experts to help us with that educational program development, and that's what that request was for.
Commissioner Harder?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about development resources to develop this plan, and that's kind of LEAP's area, and so really it's in some ways it's more a conversation about LEAP and some of the ambiguities around LEAP, I think, than it is a conversation about this particular project. LEAP is bringing this project forward as, hey, we think this is great, we would recommend it. If we had a, you know, X dollars of budget to allocate to it, we would, and we'd recommend that you approve that. But things aren't quite that clear cut at the moment, so
Well, I'll give two examples. So the board received this, which was work that had gone on between Indy and staff. And so I could pull two examples from this reading, and it relates to the assurances. One would be consideration of waiving board policies. And I connect that to the autonomy piece. So there's suggestion that board policies would be waived, but we don't know, I wouldn't know what that means, and I would need that to be operationally defined. And so without knowing anything, I'm not personally in favor of waiving policies for particular sites, but maybe we would want to look at the policies to see how they could be revised to make all sites, you know, more effective. Or another example in here was Indy would want assurance from the district that if you want to engage in fundraising, that Little Red will be the site and will forever be the site. And we know that Montessori, the building could be moved. Well, it's not prudent for the district to agree to such terms, and I don't think it's prudent for Indy either. So those are, particular, things happen to facilities and you need to move. So those are the things for me that are all sticking points, and it's how you read between the lines of these assurances. And that's I know that's the chicken and the egg, but those are the kind of specifics I'm talking about.
Okay, and I don't remember, or maybe it wasn't included on the first communication that you mentioned. I just want to be clear about what that second one was. It was not requesting an assurance that this program go to Little Red and stay there. It was a question about if Indy were to go out and do significant fundraising, how would we know that this program would actually benefit from those dollars, and what kind of an agreement might we come to? So I just want to make sure, for those of you who didn't read the email, there wasn't a misunderstanding. We did not make that demand.
Commissioner Luganville?
I guess I feel like, especially with number 4, so many of the questions that many have, including me, can be covered if number 4 is covered to fidelity, in terms of board, administration, others being able to communicate, getting the answers that we need. So I don't know if I almost just want to say people need to work it out. I mean, people need to work it out, because the board can't just say, I don't want to micromanage. I don't want this board to micromanage to the point where we're telling people specifically you're going to do this at this exact time. I think the board has said we want staff to be available to get these answers that we need to help the board figure out how to operationalize this proposal, what it would logistically look like. So I feel like we've said that, and I don't know what more we can really say. I mean, beyond, I feel like it needs to people need to figure it out, work it out, I mean, that's just my feeling on it. I saw all the emails too, and it looked like there was just a lot of miscommunications. A lot of miscommunications, and I got a headache reading through all those documents, but I read all of them, but so I don't know what to say other than this just has to be worked out. People need to sit down, figure it out, and at the end of the day, these specific questions that the board has, they need to be answered specifically, and it can't just be done by Indy, it has to be done with staff. I don't know what more we can really say in that area.
Commissioner Luganville, I couldn't agree with you more. Commissioner View?
I want to echo what Commissioner Luganberg just got done saying. I don't recall this body has a sufficient discussion and then have a discussion with the administration so that we at least see eye to eyes for the first step that we need to do, and then perhaps the second step on what we need to do. And the reason I said that step is because now we have a lot of competing priority. And we are not even on the same page about priority. How can we commit ourselves to new things when we haven't looked to see where we are? So to unfairly kill the creative idea is not just either. To blindly vote for something that you don't know, it's also not fair for the district. We need example of discussion like work sessions where we can all talk with administrator and boards.
Commissioner Wu, I couldn't agree with you more. I've been trying to get a work session a month since last year, in probably June, to put that process together where we'd have a formal meeting and a work session, formal meeting and a work session. Our work session was finally in January, and tonight it's 9 o'clock, and our work session, again, is somewhat thwarted tonight. It's been probably it's been a nemesis for me since I got on this board to have those deep conversations and work sessions with the board, and how a board can operate without that is unbelievable to me. And so I think that is, your point's well taken. we had this discussion too as a board, and we didn't have a full board. And so that doesn't, we have to catch up on that as well. So I couldn't agree with you more. So we need to figure out as a board how to fix that and go forward. And go forward with the idea that we have a big picture to look at, and we can decide, given the information, that what we're going to look like 2 years from now and what we're going to look like 10 years from now as a district. And we just have not gotten there yet. Commissioner Harder?
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate, I mean, I think this really comes back to LEAP to a large degree, but it also, of course, comes back to, the larger conversation of how do we prioritize spending in a very money-constrained environment. Would this bubble to the top as a priority for us, where in a place where we have almost no money? It seems like a long shot, honestly. But am I excited about this idea? I sure am. Would I like to see more of it in the district and to follow the policy that we have, Policy 332, which is to foster this kind of stuff? Yeah, I would. But is it our top priority in the district? I'm not sure. But we need to have that conversation as a board. And I guess good news is we've started. But it's that's, I guess we just need to take those next steps.
Commissioner Luganville.
Could I'll ask for just quickly, do we have, like, in our district, some sort of a document that's tracking the requests for information coming from the board, just to say, for example, I have questions about transportation. What's the conversation about that? So just, and like some sort of what we had with the start time committee, the live binder, something like that, so we can go and just get that information. I'm just thinking, we've got not only this proposal, but we're having to talk about culinary. We're talking about dual immersion. We're talking about a lot, and I feel like if we don't have all those facts in front of us, especially some of the things we've been asking about for a while, and some of the specificity. So I'm just wondering, is there maybe a thought of doing something like that, like we had with the start time process, like a live binder or a workflow to keep track of the requests coming from board members, so we make sure our questions are answered.
Commissioner Dweck.
Well, I just wanted to apologize because I came in the middle of the discussion, but I'm still studying all of this, and there's a lot to study this week in several areas, especially with budget and everything that I'm working on. So my apologies for not being totally prepared tonight.
I just wanted to bring it up too, as far as LEAP is concerned. We've, for 2 months now, as far as the work session 2, was to bring the LEAP. We've worked on it as a committee for over 2 months, a presentation to the board relative to your commitment to that piece. We have yet to have the work session to do it, which we were going to do it tonight. So again, I'm not apologizing because every time we were going to meet, it either iced or stormed, or things got put on the back burner. Personally, there are things now we can't put on the back burner anymore. I think, too, as far as LEAP is concerned, and new board members, we had new board members in April and June, and then we haven't had a work session to really pull everybody around that information. I find that frustrating because it brings us to these kinds of conversations as a board. And LEAP has done some amazing work, and the board needs to be pulled up to speed on what that is. And hopefully we're going to have to discuss what the board wants to do, because I would imagine we're going to reschedule tonight, and it's going to have to be yet this week or early next week in order for us to meet. I would hope so, but we'll see. People don't like to meet after 9 o'clock.
Do you have another copy of this? I didn't get one.
Any other questions from the board? Anna, do you have any questions for us?
I guess if you had any requests for us in terms of next steps.
Well, I personally think as far as next steps is we need to go back to LEAP and get the recommitment from that. I guess as a board member too, I would like to know the difference between initiatives in the district that have already provided alternative learning for kids. We didn't okay that. And so if you look at the equity or what that looks like, I think I would like to have some more information too on how those decisions are made, given, you know, how do we provide alternative learning environments and contexts for kids. I know this because I've been involved in it, but I'm not sure how the other ones came to be, and I would like to have that information. Anyone else? Seeing none, thanks, Anna. Yep. Anyone else? That takes us, anyone in the audience have a comment? Thank you for the coaching, Joe. Seeing none, that takes us to have a little discussion here with the board. It is 9 o'clock. We have our work session planned. I redid the agenda. And we also, as a board, need to go back into closed session this evening because we have some timely things that need to be decided this evening and needs to be done by the end of February, which you can see that time is waning on that. So what's the pleasure of the board? Keep going? Anyone else? Commissioner Duex?
I think we should do what we have scheduled for the work session.
Okay. Everyone else in agreement? Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting into the work session? So moved by Commissioner Duex. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Torres. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thanks.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the Eau Claire Area School Board. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.